that you are partnering with Take. We are so excited to have you on board, Hikaru. This is fantastic for Take. And why did you think it was a good fit for you to partner with Take?
Well, first of all, having looked at the app, it has a lot of features that you don't see in apps currently. I think, when you look at the commentary, for example, which I don't know if it's human. I think it's human, right? It's not AI.
We have a mod here in the studio commentating, doing that text commentary. Yep.
Yeah, so it's definitely quite different for sure versus all the apps that are out here. I think also looking at some of those player cards, having the ability to look at get the notifications, I would say, for the players who are playing in some tournaments. All those features are definitely things that are quite unique compared to what is currently on the market. So it's really exciting to see that. I think chess is something where there's a lot of potential for disruption, whether it's whether you look at apps or, on another note, you look at something like this freestyle too. There's a lot of potential for disruption across the board within the chess space. So I think it's just very exciting, and looking forward to working with Take as we go forward. And E4 was played, by the way.
E4 was played. Yeah, there we are. Should we now discuss sort of what Ding should do? Is this now very difficult for him to find the continuation and save this? Because you did say, Hikaru, that you thought this could be winning for Gukesh if he did find that move.
I mean, I think the real there are two problems. I mean, the first one is that when you look at the games, they are being played without an increment. I don't remember exactly when the shift away occurred. I want to say maybe it's like 2018 when Magnus played Fabiano. It might have been before that. But I think the shift away from having a 30-second increment per move to having no increment plays a huge role, because the time management actually becomes a lot more critical when you are getting an increment from move number one. Like in a position, if you have like 15, 20 minutes, you never really feel like you're under time pressure. But certainly without the increment, I would say that once you're at around like 15 minutes or even 10 minutes, you start to panic a little bit. So the time situation is perhaps the biggest issue here, because with an increment, I wouldn't even be worried. I mean, Ding could even use 10 minutes on this move. Without the increment and no obvious moves, this becomes very, very dangerous. And I expect him to play knight e6, rook c1, knight d4, bishop f2, bishop g7 pretty quickly. But from there, we'll see what happens. I don't really see any other ideas. And I think it's kind of a situation where you kind of have to just go for it, because rook c1 is going to win the bishop. And there are no other moves that I mean, other than playing knight e6, I actually don't see a move. Like rook g5, rook c1 looks just winning for white.
Wow.
So this is very dangerous. And I think that, it'll be interesting to hear, but I have to be honest, even though Ding was able to work it out in game one, and he found a lot of moves very, very quickly, and they were great moves. It feels like, unlike the first game, he's actually going to get punished in this one for spending too much time. I think if he had 15 minutes or an hour on the previous move, he would not have played rook h5. I think he would have played bishop f5. But at the end of the day, when you're down an hour on the clock in a situation with the black pieces, very dynamic games, and no increment, you're going to get punished. You can't do that every game. And I think, unfortunately for Ding, this is a situation where the time management is, unlike in game one, he's going to get punished for it. I don't see him surviving this.
Wow. Strong statement there from Hikaru. And while Ding is thinking, I'll ask another question about our partnership. I promised Levi Rosman yesterday, and I also promised our chat on YouTube, that I would ask you, Hikaru, what was your reaction when you saw this company launching with the name Take, which obviously is a catchphrase that you often use, takes many times. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it raises quite a few eyebrows, certainly. But at the end of the day, I think there are many names for various apps out there, and associate a name with a catchphrase or something, certainly in this day and age of the internet, can be a thing. But overall, I don't really look at it as something that's that big of a deal. Ultimately, I mean, as I said, it raised some eyebrows, but it's not really anything major, certainly.
Okay, I'm glad to hear. And now it works out perfectly because we are a team. We had another move now by Ding. He moved his pawn. Any surprises with this?
Wait, what?
Yeah, he captured on e4, Hikaru.
Okay, but it's still, we're gonna get the same line. We're gonna get takes in knight e6. Yeah, I think there some difference here?
No, these moves have happened. So Gukesh
no. But what I'm saying is there a difference? Is there a difference between taking and going knight e6?
You would be the expert in that area, Hikaru.
I think it should be the same thing, but maybe there's a difference that with the pawns trade on e4, maybe it's even more advantageous for white, perhaps. Maybe it's better for what? Maybe there's a difference here. I'm trying to understand, like, because I think the computer like 96 more than d takes e4. Just trying to understand why this is different, but I still think the same thing applies. We're going to get rook c1. Bishop, we're going to get 96, rook c1 takes, bishop f2, bishop g7 takes, and rook g2 most likely. So yeah, I mean it looks great for Gukesh. But actually, this is what he wants. Maybe he wants knight 96, rook c1, knight d4, bishop f2, bishop g7 takes. Rook G, let's say rook G2, and then maybe bishop B3, knight B3, and like a bishop E3 or a bishop E5, and try to argue that because there's so few pawns on the board, maybe black is completely fine. That's what I think he wants. I think that's his idea.
And
was that his idea also when he moved the rook up, or is this his like panic mode idea?
I mean, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I really have no idea what Ding is thinking. I mean, like it's very hard to judge because if you listen to like his comments from the press conferences, he makes it sound as though he hasn't done any preparation at all, which I mean, I don't know how you take that. Like either you take it at face value when he says he's only prepared for 3 weeks, or you assume that means he's just in light preparation over the last couple of weeks or something along those lines. So I really have no idea what the reality is here because it's very hard to judge. From his comments, you know, whether he's like super serious, whether it's like light preparation, serious preparation, it's just very hard to judge what's going through his mind. So I don't know. My assumption is that it's probably getting lower on time. He's attempting to make a tactical solution to this, where it's like he'd rather do something tactical so that he gets piece off the board. He doesn't have a lot to calculate, and he figures he can draw this. Is my best guess. But on the other hand, he could have also just missed e4. Like I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, really.
Okay. Well, so at this point, Hikaru, you are saying that you think Gukesh will make a comeback in the match, and that we will be tied in the match before the rest day tomorrow.
I mean, I'm feeling good about it. I think the main reason I feel good about his chances here, assuming that it's a significant advantage, is that he has the time to think here. I mean, I know like we talk about the moves and how important they are, but time management I think is probably the most underrated component in the game of chess, especially when you're playing without increment. Because just to use an example, when I look back at that game, the fateful game from the candidates, which helped Ding qualify, between Fabiano and Nepo, I believe it was. I do not think there was an increment at the end of the first time control in the candidates either. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't. And if there had been an increment, Fabiano would have won that game before move 40. But because there was no increment, he had to make a couple of really quick moves at the end. And he made some mistakes, which allowed the game to go on. Obviously, he was winning later as well. But the point is, he would have won that game cleanly before move 40 with increment versus no increment. And that is a major thing that people don't really consider. So for Gukesh, the fact that he has all the time in the world here, it bodes very, very well for his chances. I mean, actually, to be honest, though, as I think about it more, this piece sack to me, I'm kind of right off. I'm struggling to find the reason that white should be much better. I know white is better, of course, because the engine says white is better. But without actually knowing the line, I'm starting to second guess myself a little bit in terms of what the solution is, unlike before. So I'm starting to drift a little bit back to where I'm not super convinced right off.
Yeah, because the situation we were analyzing there, Hikaru, in that Ding would have 3 pawns in trade for the bishop. Do you feel like that's generally enough, or would you say a bishop is often worth more than 3 pawns? Because just going off the standard thing that a bishop is worth 3 and units, and the units in chess we often refer to as pawns, a lot of people could see that position and just assume that, well, Ding has it under control.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a little bit of a hot take. I think as far as chess goes, frankly, if the piece values were static, chess would be much more popular because then you could literally say 3 pawns equals a bishop, 3 equals 3. or like a knight equals 3 pawns, 3 equals 3. It's an equal trade. As we know in chess, unfortunately, that's not how it works. Pieces have dynamic values. So I think that objectively, though, I mean, this is much deeper in terms of concepts, but I would say that the bishop, the extra piece, whether it's the bishop or the knight there, should be better for white objectively. But it's also much more about what moves are like playable and plans versus who has to define the ideas to begin with. And I think that's something that applies, I would say, at the level from like IM up, certainly, where international master or higher, where in many cases, it's not about like the objective evaluation that you can see with a computer. It's much more about who has the easier moves or who has the easier ideas. And in many cases, when you're able to just react, that's actually a lot more pleasant and easier to play than having to find the ideas. Having to actually work hard to come up with something, whether it's chess or anything else in life, it's much easier just react and have to actually think and figure it all out. So I think what I would say is that for Gukesh, he has to know that there's something here, but figuring it out, it's a lot harder figuring it out than it is for Ding, where he can simply react to it. And if you can react, you can always just be Ding chilling. So it's all good.
Well, we did a recap with Magnus yesterday, Hikaru, and he was disappointed with the fact that Ding entered into a quite quick draw yesterday in game 2. He thought, Magnus, that it would be chances for Ding to win that game. Do you think, would you agree with Magnus, first of all, and do you think Ding will end up regretting that he didn't push for a win and maybe loses this game?
Well, I mean, first things first, let's be clear that there's a slight difference between Magnus and everybody else. At the end of the day, it's really very hard, I think, to kind of put this into perspective. But there are many little things. So first things first, when you look at this match or you look at the last match, you'll notice that the players are showing great variety. So Gukesh, for example, he's already played both D4 and E4 on the first move. Now, when Nepo was playing against Magnus or when Fabiano was playing against Magnus, you'll probably remember that in those matches, both Fabiano and Nepo, they were playing 1 E4 every single game. And the reason for that is that it's generally acknowledged. Players aren't going to say this publicly, even though within themselves that they know it's true, because it's psychological. Is that against Magnus, you don't simply want to play a game of chess. You don't want to play a normal position against him, because he has the best natural feel and ability for the game of chess by a big margin. It's honestly not even close. So you don't actually want to play a game against him. You want to go into these long computer lines. You want to try and prepare super hard. But the last thing you want against Magnus is to actually play chess. So when we look at this match, you're seeing big variety. You're not seeing the same first move. You're not seeing some like massive battle in the Sveshnikov opening like between Fabiano and Magnus in that 2018 World Championship. So it's very different when we talk about like the type of positions. Like yesterday's position, if Magnus has a position with the white pieces, because of his natural skill and ability in endgames, he probably would love to press that position. But there are a lot of these endgames that I frankly will say where players get them, and many players would not be able to try and win that position with the white pieces, whereas Magnus is simply unique. There are many examples of this. I think I'll take just one general example from the what was that event? There was some event that Magnus played Wesleyan recently. I forget what it was. Oh, it was Tata Steel India, and they played this opening, this Petrov. It was a variation called the Damiano. Now, the reason I bring this up is because in that game, Magnus won in this end game that's pretty dry with the white pieces. But I actually kind of brought this opening back. I resurrected it a little bit in the Chess Champions Tour in 2023. And when I played it, I felt that it was a great opening choice to go straight into this endgame against anybody not named Magnus. I thought that I would draw it very easily against everybody except Magnus. Whereas if I played against Magnus, I thought I would probably get outplayed and lose in the endgame. And that's just one example of like an endgame where I personally believe that if I were to play an endgame against anybody else, literally anybody else on planet Earth, that I would not lose, but against Magnus, I would lose that. No, I mean anybody except for Magnus.
Except Magnus.
That I would just draw the game. I would just draw the game, no worries whatsoever. But against Magnus, I think I would lose that end game. And then Wesley, for example, played against Hans Niemann in the U.S. Championship, drew very comfortably, plays against Magnus in Tata Steel, and he ends up losing this endgame that he drew very easily in classical chess maybe 2 weeks earlier. And I think that So then, like, to put that into context, when we talk about this end game, I think for Magnus, he would have had great chance to win just because he's Magnus. But I would say for most people, I think it was a little bit of an advantage, but it would have required very, very precise play from Ding. And I also think with the match score the way it was, Ding was never going to push there because I think he was very content to be up by a score of 1.5 after 2 games.
You mentioned, endgames there, Hikaru, but I also mentioned openings. And I really wanted to ask, listening to that, how much time do you spend working on openings? You're probably like the busiest man in chess with both playing, streaming, all the work that you do. How much time do you spend on working with openings, especially heading into like a World Rapid and Blitz Championship in December?
Yeah, I mean, I think not that much. Now, what I would say is that chess has changed a lot probably over the last 4 years. It's a very different game than it used to be before. The access to information is much greater than it ever has been at any time in history, whether it's chess or otherwise. And I think for me, the biggest difference is that these days it's very easy to find chess courses that grandmasters put out there. I'll very specifically say Chessable. And so the actual ability to study, I would say, is far less relevant than being able to find the information that is out there currently. And so I do look at quite a bit of chess still, but I would say that it depends what the definition of study is. But studying when I was actually playing chess a lot more like pre-pandemic, it was certainly very much trying to find ideas and openings, doing a lot of that sort of work. Whereas now mostly it's simply, looking through a course, trying to find some idea that I think is playable and going with it. So I think that in many ways, and this is probably another hot take, if not for something like Chessable, if not for that information being readily available, if we're back in 2019, I honestly don't think that I could probably maintain the level that I'm maintaining right now, just because it would be too much to be looking for the actual ideas versus the ideas simply existing. And I think, to use another example, one of the other people who's involved, Levi Rosman, I think it's very much the same thing where when you look at his matches, his tournaments at Spain or the matches against Pia, it's very clear that he's been looking at courses too. Like he started playing a lot of these openings, like the Janowski, and it's very clear that much like me, when I looked at Max Vornerdam's course before playing that opening, that Levy did the exact same thing. So that information that's out there right now, it's more a matter of being able to find the information and then just making little tweaks to that versus having to come up with the ideas. And so it's a very different world now than it used to be. And I think if not for that, I mean, I don't think I would be at the level I'm at, but the playing field is very level these days, and which at the end of the day also speaks to how great Magnus is, that with everybody having this information, he's still the best player. So I do study openings somewhat, but it's more about finding the information than anything else.
And I'm going to ask you about Magnus, but first, Hikaru, we had a move now just in the game. Gukesh moved his rook. The bar is still liking it for him. What do you think?
It's good. I mean, I am feeling better for Ding a little bit here, even if it's objectively bad. And the reason is because now Ding is going to get to play, let's see, so knight d4, bishop g7, and bishop d4. He's going to get 3 or 4 moves that he should play within like 30 seconds here.
Well, he already thought for a minute and a half, Hikaru.
I mean, but here you have to you bang out knight d4, you bang out bishop g7, you bang out bishop takes d4.
I agree. I'm with you, but Ding is still thinking. It's now been 1 minute 40 seconds.
He is not banging out
bishop
moves.
Takes e4.
And I've actually written down all the things that Hikaru has said about these different moves, but now we got knight takes d4, so we can just copy paste that comment into the app.
Oh, you know what I think? I think he was looking at? He was looking at rook g5, rook c2, knight d4 for a brief second. That's what he was looking at. Rook takes g5, rook c2, knight takes d4. But the point that I was going to make is that he's going to be able to play a lot of quick moves. So you're going to get knight d4, bishop f2, bishop g7, and bishop g7 and bishop takes d4. You play it in 5 seconds, and after you get those moves, it's a much more clarified position with a lot less possibilities. Like black either has to go bishop e3 to try and take the pawn on g5, or you put a piece on e5, or you castle. But you're running out of options. And this gets back to what I was saying before about how chess is such a very rich game, because I'll be honest, this position that black has here, I think that if I got this in just like a blitz game, like in a Title Tuesday or something with like no increment or 1 second increment, I would actually prefer to be black, because not having options and just having to play having like 1 or 2 moves to play at every at every point versus having to think is great. That's what you want in a blitz situation. And so then to put that in context with the current position for Ding, he should be able to play a lot of moves quickly. Now, obviously, Gukesh is still better, and he very likely can go on to win this game. But at least for Ding, time is not going to be a factor.
Okay. Well, the bar is now saying much better for Gukesh. He could be about to make
After
a comeback.
what?
Bishop G7 is the
question?
latest move.
Right. But after what? I'm really curious.
Yeah, no, we're interested.
Oh, 92. Ooh.
Wait,
Oh,
now?
92.
Well, so the bar is saying much better
Ooh.
for Gukesh in the current situation.
Ooh, 92. Ooh.
Okay.
Okay, that's a tough move.
Oh. So that's not a
tough
human
to
move.
find.
Okay.
No, but I mean, but what I would say here is with 58 minutes on the clock where you can think for 10, 15 minutes, I mean, it's definitely not a natural move. Like I didn't see it right off. It's a move where if you have time to think, I think with 10 minutes on the clock, you probably don't find it. 15 minutes on the clock, you can just take a breather, get some tea, whatever, and spend 20 minutes on this move. And so I think actually there's a very good chance he'll find 92. I think there's a very good chance. And also the reason this is probably a lot better is now you keep the bishop pair on the board. If you take the knight on d4, you don't have the bishop pair. But here you're going to be able to keep the two bishops. So actually 92 is a very, very strong move.
Okay. But you mentioned the situation for Ding is that he has these one moves sort of to find. For Gukesh, is it now difficult because he has to maneuver some tough choices? Or does he have several moves he can play?
I mean, it looks like it's the only move that's very good, but I think for Gukesh, it's a great spot to be in because he's definitely a pure calculator, and this is a position where you want to do deep calculations. So I think the ability to just calculate every possibility here, by process of elimination, I do think he will find it.
Okay.
If he doesn't find it, that will be a very, very big miss.
Uh-huh. Well, we can see on our screens here in the Take studio, Gukesh has closed his eyes and he is probably calculating this position. So I want to ask you, Hikaru. Magnus Carlsen, he's a co-founder of this company. You guys have been the biggest rivals in chess for such a long time, and now you're teaming up. How do you feel about being a team member now with Magnus?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've both had very long and illustrious careers, but I think having the chance to be sort of on the same side of, a business venture, which is outside of chess.com, of course, is quite interesting. I think that when you look at the world of chess, you have the three biggest people in the space right now all involved with this project. So it's going to be exciting to work alongside Magnus and potentially Levy as well to try and build out this app. But in general, I think over the years there have been a lot of rivalries, a lot of people in one camp or another camp, and just having the opportunity to work together, it should be interesting to see what the general reactions are from the fans.
And Gukesh has found this knight to e2 move a great move, not rushing to try and capture Black's bishop, removing the defender, like Hikaru said, without losing the very important bishop controlling the dark squares. And with this move, Ding is in massive trouble.
Ooh.
I mean, yeah, I'm struggling to figure. I mean, basically the main problem for Black here is it's not being down a piece for the two pawns. It's that White's going to keep the two bishops. The bishop pair is what makes this so bad in the long run. And I honestly think that at this point, it's going to be very, very difficult for Ding to save this. I mean, knight takes b3, I think to me at least looks like the only move here.
And that is what
C2.
Ding has played.
Yeah, rook takes c2, knight takes d2, rook takes d2. And it looks, I mean, I wouldn't, I mean, it's not completely lost, of course, but the two bishops give White great chance to win this. I mean, I think we'll get knight b3, rook c2, takes, rook takes d2, knight e5 probably. I mean, knight d4. It's pretty ugly. It's pretty ugly. Let's put it that way. It's pretty ugly. After knight e5, knight d4, castles. I mean, still practical chance for Ding to maybe survive this, but I with the two bishops on the board, it's going to be a long game. It's going to be a long game.
Okay. Well, we like long games. Hikaru, now we have Gukesh thinking again, so I will ask you about the World Rapid and Blitz Championship coming up in December. We are so excited in Take to follow your games very closely. They're obviously in the app. You can highlight and favorite your favorite players. Hikaru is one of the most favorited players, not a surprise. 77,000 people already has highlighted you, Hikaru. So for the World Rapid and Blitz, what do you expect and what will be your ambition there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main way that I look at it is simply trying to play good chess. I would say that certainly it's an uphill battle relative to past years. I think in most years past, there's been Magnus and maybe to some degree a player like Maxime or a Nepo who've been very strong contenders as well. Now, of course, Ali Reza is playing perhaps the best blitz chess at least of his life. So it's going to be exciting to play in it. I mean, I think for me, the main thing is what I say with every tournament, which is simply to be competitive. I'm competitive and I play good chess. Good things can happen. So I'm looking forward to it. I would say for me, like, you know, when I look at the events, though, I really would like to do well in the Rapid perhaps as well, because I think in Rapid, there was the one year in 2019 when I played Magnus in the last round. I got, I think, second place with that draw. But other than that year, I don't think I've really ever been close to winning in the Rapids. So I actually kind of want to try and put in a good effort there, because Rapids is the one thing where I haven't traditionally performed very well.
And we see Gukesh has moved his king. What would it mean to you, Hikaru, at this point in your career?
Maybe Hikaru wants to react to the king, because that's Hikaru was analyzing capturing with the rook, and Gukesh deviates from that using his king instead.
Yeah, I mean, apparently this is the best move. I don't really understand why, but apparently it is. I'm guessing it's because knight e5, you have rook c3 probably, and the knight has no good squares, something like that. Is my guess. Yeah, actually, I get it. I get the point. Yeah, the point is that you go rook c3, and then you're gonna have a bishop d4 maybe at some point as well. Yeah, I think after rook c3, you slide the king to c2, and you have bishop d4, bishop g3, and yeah, it's looking pretty good for actually you also have rook h3 somewhere too, like castles, king c2, a6, there might be a rook h3 or something. Yeah, there might be a rook h3 there. But again, it's still not what I would say. It's not like a game over situation. There's quite a ways to go. So we'll see, but the more I look at it, the more confident I become. For Gukesh, I think there's a very, very decent chance that he will. There's a very decent chance that he'll win this game and even it up.
Okay, and what do you think about the match then? If they are tied after 3 games?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to judge, because obviously Gukesh coming into this match is the massive favorite. There's really no other way of putting it. But of course, Ding won the first game, which certainly had to feel like a big advantage to him at the time. But you know, what's funny is I think that if you were to ask Ding, I think he would say that if he were tied after 3 games, knowing that he'd black in game 1, he'd probably say he'd be happy with that result overall. So I don't know really how much it matters in regards to Ding. I think for Gukesh, it's very important that he wins this game and ties up the match, because psychologically, I think that first game came as a huge blow to him. I think he probably did not expect to lose that game. And he is someone who I think really just does ride the confidence very well when he's playing well, has that momentum. He tends to do very well. So for him, it's very important that he wins this game. For Ding, it's much harder to judge. I don't think he'll be happy if he loses this game, but I also don't know if it's going to change a whole lot for him. So, but at any rate, I mean, I think definitely in terms of having a competitive match, it was actually very good that Ding won the first game, because so many people, frankly, including myself, who were kind of expecting Gukesh to draw first blood and win a game early. So to have it go the other way, to have this be competitive is really good. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I agree. Ding Liren is the reigning champion. Hikaru, you are a reigning champion in Fischer Random. But at this point in your career, what would it mean to take the title in the Rapid and or Blitz in December?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say it would be nice to win. For me at this point in my career, mostly when I do play in these events, I simply want to be competitive more than anything. That's my main goal. It's not really about winning anymore for me. So if I'm competitive and I play good chess, I'm generally going to be pretty happy with that, as opposed to needing to win to accomplish something. Mainly, I would say that's also because for me, when I look at my career in general, I think ultimately I'm going to be remembered much more for what I've done for in the online space than my over the board play. So for me, winning either a Rapid or a Blitz would be very nice. It'd be a bit of a feather in my cap per se. But that would still be a very much an individual accomplishment versus something that has helped the chess in the broader perspective. So for me, it would be nice to win. And that would be great, but it's not, I don't really look at it as something that's like, let's just say going back to say 2019 or 2018 or 2019, where, for example, when I lost a tiebreaker, it was 2019, I think in Moscow, I think, or St. Petersburg, I forget where it was, when I lost a tiebreaker in Blitz to Magnus, like that actually was pretty devastating at the time, I would say, because that was the closest I had come to winning. So back then it was devastating. Now, if that were to happen, I mean, I'd be a little bit unhappy, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. So it'd be nice, but ultimately I just want to play good chess and enjoy the game. Certainly for myself, I think the way I would put it is the end is much closer than the beginning for me. So if I can just play good chess and enjoy it, that's my goal.
Okay. Well, we hope you're going to keep playing for many years, Hikaru, and we're so happy that you're now a team member of Take. So with what you are doing, with how you're popularizing chess with your stream, with Magnus now with Take, a good home for chess, an easy way to follow games, how do you see the future for chess? Do you think it's going to be a global sport for people to enjoy, to watch, and not only play?
Yeah, I think you look when you look at chess historically, there have been many sort of booms over the past, let's just say 35 to 40 years, just starting with the Fischer boom specifically, and going from there. There've been actually, I guess that was 72, so that's 50 plus years actually. But there have been many booms, there have been many periods of interest where the interest has peaked, and it's there have been ebbs and flows. I think. For me, when I look at the future, I'm really curious to see what happens very specifically with this freestyle tour. It's probably the first time, at least since I was very young. Of course, when I was very young, I heard about these things, but I didn't really see any of it going on. But it's the first time, at least, since I became quite strong at chess, where you have an individual in Jan Buettner who's trying to do something that's much more in the vein of a business project versus something that's simply, I'm going to say it, is chess socialism, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I'm quite curious to see how that goes, just because it's a very fresh take. You have someone doing things not purely from like the chess perspective. So really looking forward to that. I think that will be pretty telling in terms of future, whether things go up or whether it's a bit of an ebb and flow and history kind of repeats itself. But that I think is the thing that I'm looking forward to the most going forward, is whether that becomes a major thing or not. But I think as far as online goes, there are always going to be casual fans who follow the game. With every generation, there are always kids who take up the game, just like their parents or their grandparents before them. So the future for chess, I think, is quite bright. I think on some level we've probably hit a peak during in this like the 2022-2023 period in a way, but I think that ultimately you have to look at it with the context of we're in a much better place now for chess than we ever have been, and there still is a lot of potential for growth. So I'm looking forward to the future, and I think I think 2025 is going to be a very exciting year for chess.
Oh, I agree. And you mentioned the freestyle chess. That's super cool. 5 tournaments to decide the world champion in Fischer Random or freestyle chess. Magnus will be a part of it. Hikaru, as a reigning champ, will also, of course, be a part of that. Take also aims to be a part of it. We hope to create a really cool fantasy chess game for that. We're also building out Guess the Moves, which I bet will be a cool thing to do when you're streaming, Hikaru, to sort of play Guess the Move with your fans.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm going to be doing that during the Champions Chess Tour.
Yeah.
So I'm looking quite forward to that. It's also something that, from a content perspective, it reminds me a lot of a period in 2020 when there were a lot of whimsical games, I seem to recall, like Guess the Move or Guess the Opening or Guess the ELO, a lot of these different things. So, there's a saying in content creation, which is it's called yoink and twist. It's a phrase from the famous content creator Ludwig, which is, you kind of have something that's been around and you twist a little bit, you make it very exciting. And when it comes to something like Guess the Move, it's that really is a very old concept. I remember when I was a kid, there was this chess magazine called Chess Life in the United States, and they had this column where they have a game, and of course the moves are shown, but basically you're supposed to like cover the moves and try to guess what the moves are in that magazine. And So I would say that it's great to see something like that. I'll definitely try that during the Champions Chess Tour, which is I think coming up in about a week or a week and a half. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and all these different things that are out there, all this innovation is great for the game of chess.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Very exciting times. Hikaru, finally, Gukesh is still thinking now on move 26. He spent a little over 8 minutes, but he has much more time than Ding to reach move 41. You still think Gukesh will win this game, that we will be tied after game 3 in the match?
I'm a little confused as to why he's thinking so long here. Because to me, Rook C3 looks like the only move. I'm not actually understanding what he's thinking about. Because to me, every other move just doesn't make sense. Maybe he can play Knight D4 first, but to me, every other move except Rook C3 just doesn't make sense here. So I'm a little bit confused as to why he's thinking so long in this position. I mean, I still think it's more likely than not that he wins. But if he doesn't play Rook C3, I'm skeptical. So I would say right now, I mean, if I were betting on this, not that I am, although I think people have been looking at Polymarket quite a bit.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably it's probably 80-20 right now. But effectively, next 3 or 4 moves are very important. If Gukesh can consolidate his position, maneuver the bishops and knight, get them on much better squares, he will win this game. So the next 3 to 4 moves are going to be very, very critical here. And if he finds the best moves, I firmly believe he'll win. I mean, I think in general, I feel pretty good about this position for him. I think he's much more likely to win than not, but there's still some work to be done. And at the end of the day, also, it is a world championship match. And, one thing that I think is kind of, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing in chess, is that the candidates and or world championship are the only 2 events where it basically is a winner take all. And so when you have the stakes that are so much higher, handling your nerves throughout the course of those events is very, very different than just playing, say, a grand chess tour event, for example, whether it's rapid or classical, where you can play the games, you still try to find the best moves, but the stakes aren't as high. So I always find it interesting to see who has the best nerves, and nerves do play a huge role, because I would frankly argue that Jan Nepomniachtchi, for example, if you look at the world championship matches that he played, maybe not against Magnus, but definitely against Ding, if he had better nerves, he would have won that. He was objectively, in my opinion, the better match, but at the critical moments, Ding Liren kept his nerves about him much better than Nepo was able to. So it's fascinating to see if if Gukesh controls his nerves, he'll win the game. But let's see what happens.
Yeah. We love your insight, Hikaru. Thank you so much. Final question. It's super early morning for you. Game start like 4 a.m. for you in Florida. Have you stacked up on coffee for the World Championship match?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely try to find some energy. I think what I would say is that the biggest reason that I do it, getting up at 4 a.m., is simply because there are a lot of fans out there who want to see it. I think at this point, I've obviously had a lot of success. I've streamed for quite a few years now. But for me, just having the ability to bring chess to the fans, give them something that they really enjoy, that really provides me more motivation or energy than anything else, I would say. So. Yeah, for me, it's not. It's not really. It's more about what gives me that motivation or energy versus specifically caffeine.
Yeah, or even Red Bull. I remember the first time I met you, Hikaru. I was a sports journalist covering my first ever tournament in the Sinkfield Cup 2014, and I remember I was so impressed when you came sponsored by Red Bull. I felt like you were such a star in the chess world, and I later, of course, understood you were. But 2014. I mean, already then you were working with some big partners.
Yeah, I think that for me, I've always looked at chess as something where it feels like there's a lot of potential. It's more a question of how do you bring in sponsor, generate the attention. I think this is not really intended to be negative in any way, but I think one of the big things that, for example, FIDE has really failed at is that when you think about a game like chess, time is, obviously we use clocks. Time is probably the most important part of the game. And, not getting sponsors, specifically like watchmakers or creating new clocks or things to bring those type of people into the game, I think is one of the things that disappoints me the most overall. Because it just feels like that's a very natural tie-in, something you could easily get sponsors for. You should be able to, at least I would say. But still, even despite that, I think, when you look at the Champions Chess Tour, or back when it was the Magnus Tour in 2020, there are sponsors out there there is a lot of big interest in chess, and hopefully more of those sponsors see what a great game it is, and they want to be involved in some way.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple moves on the board. Do you have time to give us your final take on that, Hikaru, before you go back to your stream?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this.
Ooh,
I don't.
Who?
Why did he do this? Why did he play knight d4? I'm confused. I mean, maybe knight d4 is fine, but I'm looking at this. I don't like this at all.
My impression is...
I don't like this at all.
My impression, Hikaru, is that knight d4, one of the points is that it's easier now to get in a position to challenge the best placed black piece, which is the knight on e5. That he hopes that somehow he can move his king and knight over to challenge this well-placed piece.
I actually had a different take. So the reason that I liked rook c3 more, just to give you an example, the reason I liked rook c3 more was actually to dominate the knight, not to play knight d4. I thought rook c3, with like king c2 and bishop d4 to dominate the knight, keep it pinned on the diagonal, was actually, to me at least, seemed maybe a little bit more. To me, I thought that might be a little bit more natural. I don't know. I guess knight d4 king. The idea is to go what, king e2? Is that the idea?
So knight d4,
bishop e2, rook h2 is... Yeah, because if you go bishop e2, rook h2, and it's all gone. So you have to go king e2, I guess? Yeah, I mean, maybe... Yeah, maybe it's still good. It's interesting. I would have... I thought that putting the rook on c3 was more logical. But yeah, maybe this is best. Who knows?
Well, the bar is still definitely in favor of Gukesh. Hikaru, thank you so much for joining our stream here in the Take studio, and we are so excited to be teaming up with the great Hikaru Nakamura.
Good talking to you guys, and yeah,
Likewise.
I'll be talking to you guys soon.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see each other again very soon. Thanks, Hikaru, and enjoy the rest of the game.
No problem. See you guys. Bye.
Bye. Ooh, that felt huge, you guys. Hikaru Nakamura is a team member for all of us for Take, and that is great news for us. I think it's great news for chess as well.